If I can use social media to drive awareness, in the long term, that'll drive inbound interest in what I'm doing. So creating a brand that people want to connect with, being somebody that people want to talk to, and using social media to do that.
I'm a big proponent of zero admin. That's our mission at the company, to remove all the administration. So people can't fake it, you can't fudge it, but you can actually have high quality conversations.
The way that I was taught how to sell was just pure activity, KPIs. The more dials you make, the more connects you have, the more opportunity.
And I think that delivering value is after somebody touches you or you touch them, when they leave that conversation, are they going to feel like they gained something or lost something?
Joel Lalgee and Marcus Sawyer welcome you to AI and Recruiting, the show where they break down how AI is transforming hiring, leadership, and the future of work. Expect real talk, smart tools, and bold conversations with the people shaping what's next. Let's get into it.
Welcome to AI in Recruiting. I'm your co-host, Joel Lalgee, and with me I have Marcus Sawyer, my favorite co-host of them all. Marcus, what is up? How are you doing?
I'm doing very well, Joel. Always great to connect with you.
Always great. I know you got a lot going on in your world, which I'm excited to jump into. Maybe we should start off with a little quick introduction on the show too, because I know you've had a ton of new subscribers to the community. So I don't know, do you want to intro like what we talk about and even what we're going to talk about this week as well, just to give people some context?
Yeah, so this is the place that you come to if you want to hear more details around AI, specifically focused on the recruiting sector. But, and it's a big caveat, if you're in sales, if you're trying to get new business, if you've started an organization, if you are thinking about doing that, or just thinking about how to use AI and have a framework that's going to help you scale, this is the place to be. I spent the last 18 years in HR, tech, and recruiting. The majority of that was on the sales side. 10 years sales at Career Builder, then went into the recruiting space as a global president at the Adecco Group, and then went into technology and building AI solutions. And more recently at EQ, we've been building AI solutions for sales and recruiting to help companies not just use tools, but find the solutions that can help them get to the next opportunity. So yeah, that's really what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited because I'm in a sales position. So anything I can do to get the edge in sales and business development, I'm all about it. And I will say, I have a decent amount of conversations with other salespeople who are in the recruitment space as well. And I think business development, sales, it's a challenge. And then I also have conversations with brands that are looking to grow, technology companies that are looking to grow. I see the content on LinkedIn as well. And so it seems like business development right now, a lot of opportunity, but also challenging. So I'm sure anyone who is looking to grow their business is going to find this episode super valuable.
Yeah, absolutely. So you mentioned, Joel, that you're a salesperson, and I would consider myself a salesperson. But do you remember, maybe it still is, when sales was considered a dirty word, right? No one wanted to say that they were really in sales. I was actually thinking about that the other day. But as an entrepreneur or somebody starting a business, the line that sales sits on is the top line. And everything else in the middle gets squeezed. So maybe talk a little bit more about your sales approach, and then some of the things that you've been doing within sales would be really interesting to dive into, because I think that you have a slightly unique approach where you combine sales and marketing, and it's not just one touch.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think coming from the recruitment space, just like you, the way that I was taught how to sell was just pure activity, KPIs. The more dials you make, the more connects you have, the more opportunity. And in many ways, I think that's still true. But I just think instead of dials, now we have so many more methods of communicating with people. You got email, text message, social media, the list goes on, right? So my approach, and where I started with this was about 5 years ago, my approach was, if I can use social media to drive awareness, in the long term, that'll drive inbound interest in what I'm doing. So creating a brand that people want to connect with, being somebody that people want to talk to, and using social media to do that. But at the same time, if you can get past that initial hurdle of going from cold to warm, which is, awareness on social media, then you can get a higher response rate with that the cold messaging. So I jumped on that, thought if there's a way to make cold calling less cold, if there's a way to eventually never have to do cold calling again, I'm all about it. But even in that journey, I've embraced cold outreach and I enjoy cold outreach. So I'm still somebody that does cold outreach, but I also do rely on social media to build brand, build awareness of who I am and what I do. And that's a journey that just never ends. So it's just funny how that evolves. But yeah.
Yeah. So I started in sales actually many, many, many years ago. So kind of, I suppose one of my first sales jobs was a door-to-door sales. And then from that, I started selling gym memberships. And then from that, I was selling something that people weren't really aware of, space online on the internet instead of in newspapers. I was selling job postings. And then started to evolve into selling software and then selling talent into businesses. So there are different types of sales. And now we sell AI solutions. And I think that as the type of sales that you do evolves, and the channels evolve, as a salesperson, you have to evolve. If I think back to door to door and then thinking about making 120 phone calls a day, every day, which really sharpens you.
Yeah.
Right. Really does. And while I was doing it, I was trying to think every single day on how can I make this go away? Because what I loved was actually speaking to people.
Yeah.
What I didn't really like was having the phone put down on me multiple times.
Yeah.
And it was fine for me because I was early and I didn't know what I didn't know. And then I started to invite my friends to the same company I was at. So I would always say to them, hey, look, there's a job opportunity here. So I had a few friends that were going through the same thing. And then for me, it was never about, you'd have these activity numbers, which is how many dials. And I remember this one guy came in and we were meant to make 120 phone calls a day. And I was like, the power dialer, like no one was beating me. And I remember like he got like 130. I was like, how did this guy do that? Because I was on the phone constantly. Anyway, it turns out that he was just making fake dials. And so you get people that make fake dials to hit their activity numbers because the activity number was then associated with the output.
Yeah.
So that was like, oh my gosh. Then there was another guy at the same time as well. I'll tell you about him at the end. Then there was another person I saw that was going out and you were meant to be out on a Monday, or actually be in the office on Monday, should I say, out on Tuesday and Wednesday and Thursday. And you come back in on a Friday because that's when you should be out in the field meeting. And you're meant to have a certain amount of new business meetings a week. I think it's like 5 to 10.
And where were you locationally when you were doing this?
I was in London at the time, but you could travel all across the UK. And then you would find out that there were people that were hitting these new business meeting metrics and there was no way to real track it. And they weren't real. They're having fake meetings. Okay, so I was like, oh, wow. But the other guy, the killer guy, we had fax machines where deals used to come in. And there was this one guy and he basically had people that worked at different companies and he would call them and tell them to send a fax through for a deal.
Oh, wow.
And so we thought he was getting all these deals and he's getting all this commission. And he got found out and got let go. And I actually really looked up to that guy because I thought he was one of the best salespeople there. And I was like, hang on a minute, this is all crazy. Then fast forward, CRM started to come out and we actually took out this tiny CRM at the time, which I started using as an individual called Salesforce. And this was in I want to say it's probably 2008, 2009.
Yeah.
And then we had a senior leader who tried to do a full revamp of all of the sales CRMs and start from Salesforce and move to another one. And everybody hated it. It was a really bad decision. And she's actually excellent now. She'll remember this if she's listening in. And what I noticed is there's so many different variables. And none of that I've talked about has been related to having relationships and building relationships with people. But that's what you need to get to in order to get to that. So I'm a big proponent of zero admin. That's our mission at the company, to remove all the administration. So people can't fake it, you can't fudge it, but you can actually have high quality conversations.
I love that. Well, I think so often the KPIs, which are good, the KPIs are set as a foundation and almost a way to track. But I think often metrics and KPIs, if leadership is too focused on the KPIs and the activity, you lose the results. And I think as somebody I was in sales and in retail banking,
Yeah.
for a long time. And the idea was open as many checking accounts as you can. And while you open up the checking account, open up a savings account and a credit card, because they found statistically if you had a certain amount of products, they would call sticky products. And so you could deepen a relationship, and then the client would last longer. And
Yeah.
they found that out from data, right? So it's like they took this data, and sometimes what happens is like people take data. And I remember this same example when there was a study that came out, 8 touch points, right? 8 touch points with a prospect. It's probably like 40 now, but it was 8 touch points. And so some leaders will read an article like that and go, well,
Right.
now we got to get 8 touch points in a day, and then we'll get the sale. But they're not actually looking at, okay, yes, this data and these KPIs, they're designed to keep you on track.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I would rather have 10 dials with $1 million of revenue coming in than 1,000 dials with 100,000 revenue coming in, because the quality and who you're dialing and how you're building that relationship matters. And so I think that, but there's levels to that, because when you start out, you have to have lots of activity because no one knows you. You have to market yourself. You have to have people hear your name, get to know them. But now we have all of these other ways that you can do that, like social media and like newsletter, community, online. And so there's different ways that you can build that awareness
Sure.
that isn't just one-to-one and one-to-many. And I think understanding that is a challenge. And then you add, like what we're going to talk about today, a technology component in that's kind of come out of nowhere that everybody's trying to figure out. And so if you can figure that out, you can have a massive advantage, I think, nowadays. But there's a lot of people, I think, who are, still trying to figure out, and like, especially with sales, like, what's the best way? How do we get to that point? So I'm curious how we take zero admin to build stronger relationships to get more sales, where I think a lot of the approach so far that I've seen, and I'm curious to get your take on this, has been, let's just spam people. Like, we could spam people now amazingly with really personalized messages, but it doesn't always seem to be that effective. So I'm curious how your framework goes with that.
Yeah, so I think it's really important with any go-to-market strategy to understand the 3 parties. There might be 4, but the 3 key parties.
Yeah.
The influencer, that could be a C-level, right? But you could be mistaken to thinking that they're a buyer, which might be a division head, let's say a sales director. And then the user of whatever your service is. If you're selling software, if you're selling recruiting services, it may still be the buyer, which could be the hiring manager. And so if you're selling recruiting services, your influencer might be HR, which a lot of recruiting teams try to avoid at start for some reason. And then your actual buyer, right, will be the hiring manager.
Yeah.
And so and also the user. And it depends on the size of company that you're tackling. So if you're with a large organization, they're going to have a process. And it's really not only thinking about how the AI can help you sell, but using the AI to help you understand how your targets buy. If you understand how your targets buy, you can tailor your sales pitch to them and your sales approach even, which is part of the pitch. So I think breaking that down is really important, and then thinking about those areas where AI may help you. But if you don't understand that deeply enough, it's going to be very challenging. So I'll give you another example. There's some products that you can buy just online. We had one, EQ Buddy, and we still have that. But the user of that may just want to do something really quickly, and they may not be an influencer inside of a company. They might have taken it out as an individual. So you have to have an understanding of who you're trying to sell to and what you think that their need is, and can you deliver something valuable to them? And the touch points I think about, so we have a community, as you mentioned. I just showed you a blog that we have, right? Like we have an AI and recruitment blog. We've got a white paper that we put out. Then we go to market, we go to conferences. So we've got all these touch points that may provide value to our prospective influencer, buyer, and user. So when you understand that, you can figure out what your strategy is to kind of go out and reach to them.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I'm curious too. This is one thing I've been thinking about. How much, and maybe it's something that's changed, maybe it's something that stayed the same. How much in sales is it based on relationship and the strength of relationship, and then just solving a problem? And then if you have a problem, or you have like think of like enterprise sales, for example, like how do you kind of think about that and approach like relationship selling that's a little bit more long-term, and then short, term selling where it's just like, hey, I got a solution, a point solution for your problem. How do you kind of balance that, and how do you figure out your strategy based on those things?
Yeah. So if we take recruiting, for instance, a hiring manager is going to be somebody that wants to buy potentially a painkiller because they've got a challenge right now. And then if you think about somebody more central in a central role. They want to do what's good for the company.
Yeah.
So they're buying vitamins, as you would say. What's going to make the company stronger? So you're selling either painkillers or you're selling vitamins, right? You can enter through a painkiller, right? So if you've got a challenge, you find what that pain is. You then help that person solve that. And if you help the person solve that pain, there's an opportunity to then sell vitamins, because everyone should really be taking vitamins and looking after themselves. And some of the other kind of approaches are like you just prey on pain and you go in and solve pain. That's just what you do. And so I think understanding your sales approach and what you're selling is really important. And so you talked about size of enterprise and enterprise scales. I spoke to somebody this week. She has a territory in Detroit, Michigan. We have a service which allows you to identify companies. And she wanted to identify companies that are over $1 billion in that area. Her average deal size, she said this is a tiny deal for her. It's like $5 million. She's going after deals that are 500 million. She needs to identify all of the buyers across that organization. And that's like going in and selling like let's say an MSP type deal or an RPO deal. And once you do that, that's where it's really about relationships. The sales cycle determines the length of the relationship. Because some of these deals, she was saying, hey, I might not do a deal this year. She was saying to me, this is like halfway through, but she's planning for next year already. And so the size of the company, the sales cycle will determine the level and depth of relationship, which is also correlated to the amount. If it's a really small purchase, let's say $100, you don't really need to have a relationship with someone to do that. But there's this whole kind of gray area in between the 500 million and $100 of what level of relationship should you build. And I think that is predicated on the value that you deliver should be correlated to the amount of revenue that you can get for that deal. So if it's a 500 million deal in the sales process, you've got to be delivering value. But you might have an entry point as a painkiller.
Value, right? I mean, because we hear this all the time. When you think about value, and by the way, I think you deliver a lot of value all the time. I mean, I know you delivered a lot of value for me personally, and I've seen you deliver value for people. So I know you have thoughts on this, but what does like delivering value look like within the sales cycle? And where do you think that you can use AI to deliver value, and where might be some missteps of how you would use AI to deliver value?
So I've started spending a lot more time in the last few years developing and coding. And what that allows me to do is think in systems and think about, if I'm not there and somebody touches my product, how will it make them feel? And I think that delivering value is after somebody touches you or you touch them, when they leave that conversation, are they going to feel like they gained something or lost something? When they see your article, are they going to feel like they learned something, or are they going to feel like they wasted some time? So for me, value, and if you compound that, 8 times I've interacted with this person, and every time I meet with them, I got something from it, and they didn't even try and sell me. The next time you try to sell them, it's going to be an easier approach, right? If the first communication is you want to take either time, like, can I have some of your time? So, well, can you give me something first? So thinking about the give-get, that is value. Give first, you get a second. You might give 3 times, and then you get. And so that's what I believe value is in each of those interactions, right? Like when you leave somebody with a thought, piece of information, some energy, whatever that is, did you make that person better or worse? That's value.
How can you use AI to bring, or how should be people thinking about like AI in terms of bringing value?
I think it's down to hyper personalization. And it's such a thin line, because you've seen these messages and these emails. I think we were talking about it previously as well, where if something's kind of moved, I know if somebody puts like a trademark on our company, then it's sent by AI. So you almost turn that person off from delivering the value. And it could have been a really good message. You could have had something good to say. But I think providing the right opportunity at the right time with the appropriate messaging that can help someone do something if you're not there is really delivering value with AI. So I'll give an example of an agent that I built this week. And this agent now has taken the context of our products and our services. So understands what we do, how we work, how we approach, understands how I send messages. Every time I have a call, nowadays what I love about AI is I can get on a call and I can focus on that person. I don't have to take notes so much. I can interact. And then at the end, you get a transcript. What I noticed is there's this whole transcript overload. There's all these transcripts sitting there. And there's another story I'll tell you about. It's just loads of transcripts. No one's doing anything with it.
Yeah.
Now, what I decided to do was build an agent that understands the transcript, understands what we offer, and then provides a personalized follow-up based on the context of our discussion at that point in time, what we offer and what we do. Now, I actually built that not necessarily for quality, but for speed.
Yeah.
Because I was having multiple meetings and I was dropping balls in certain areas. And I was like, oh my gosh, what can I do?
Yeah.
And so building an agent helped me do that. Now, it's a really simple task, but it sometimes takes a lot of time to think through. And if the AI has not only got me 60% there, but got me 95% there, when I see that proposal message, I can then tweak that, edit that, and I can see what people respond to, and then I can tweak it, edit it continuously. So the reason that works is I have context of what that person wants to get throughout the discovery process.
Yeah, I love that. I love it. Well, I think, to be honest with you, this is why I'm a big fan of the social media approach, which I always go there, but I'm a big fan when it comes to being able to deliver value that way. And I think the way that I think about value is similar to how you think about it, but I also think about just knowing how to meet people and what they need in the time that they need it. So when I think about social media, I think, why would somebody be scrolling? Okay,
Yeah.
maybe they're scrolling because they're looking to be entertained, or they're in a mindset where they're looking to see, what's trending and what's happening. And I think having that same mindset with how you approach value of like, what can you give people? What can you give them in a moment? It's the same way to approach social media. It's thinking, okay, when I do this post, what am I going to give to people? Am I going to inspire them? Am I going to entertain them? Am I going to give them some information that's going to make their life easier? And I think it's getting into that mindset and thinking, because the challenge is on the flip side, if you're a salesperson, you know that you have like your bosses, you have people who are above you, and you got the quota. And so the quota, I think, is there designed to make sure you're on track and to make sure the business is on track. But a lot of times you can approach a quota, or you can approach a goal as something you're trying to get. And it's like, if that's how you are approaching it, everything else you do then is like that take motion, which you're describing. And it's like, I'm trying to connect with you to get something so I can hit my goal. And it's just thinking differently about it, and just thinking, okay, how can I add to people's day? And there's so many different ways to do that.
Yeah.
And but it seems like so elementary and so basic, but I don't actually see like that many people doing a great job with it, which kind of blows my mind. And then I think even just more basically, you said in what you just described, now that you've done that, you can go to people and say, hey, I can save you time doing this. And it's like, at the end of the day, you can save people time. Like in business, the most valuable thing you can do for any business is save it time, save them money, make them money, or some kind of combination of all three. And so it's like, even with that example you had, now you could say, hey, looking for a way to stay more engaged with your phone calls and save time, with your prospecting, and you just meet this agent. That's highly valuable. Anyone's going to look at that and go, wow, that's going to save me 2 hours a day, which is going to save this amount of revenue. So I love that.
Yeah. Look, I think there are many steps in sales, depending on what you're selling as well, who you're selling to, the time in which you sell. But I think the overarching theme is being prepared. So we used to do a lot of research before our sales calls at Career Builder, like a lot, before every meeting. We'd know.
Are you researching like the business, the person, a mix of both? Like what types of things you're researching?
Everything. I'd know how many jobs they had on their site. I'd know what other sites they had jobs on. I would go through their application process. I would find out who I'm speaking to, and then I'd find out the 2 or 3 other people that they'd met that were in their team. This was before LinkedIn, okay? And so we're just using the internet to search all of this stuff. And so it made us really good at searching the net, because the information wasn't in one space. And we started to bring all this research together, and then I would build up a case. And then our sales approach, the start of it, we'd do something called an ETR, which I tell a lot of folks who join me at EQ, they have to do an ETR, which is earn the right. And you build credibility in yourself. You build credibility in the solution, and you build credibility in the process. So you say who you are, you say what we do, you say this is how long it's going to take you on this call. And start every single meeting like that. And then you'd ask the person to do the same thing, but you drive every meeting. And that worked at that time. I'm not saying that's the best way to do things now, but it's a framework and a mindset that you go into each meeting with. And I think that having that framework and a mindset along with your AI agents helping you is key. You're still going to do the same process. So we're rebuilding a customer intelligence platform and we're rebuilding it from scratch. We may offer that to some of our customers as well. And as part of it, it's like redesigning what that sales process is. One of the other things that we're doing is identifying companies that have signals. So with the AI agent, it can go out, it can find a company, can find out if they've got jobs, what their news is, and it can tell you if there's a match for you to connect with them. If you know that information, your outreach is going to be slightly different. But you can also do it with your current accounts, right? So maybe you've got current accounts you're working and you didn't know that they have just opened new office or new hospitals. Now, how can you then tell them something relevant or let them know that you're staying up to date or share something else that might be useful to them? So I really think it's about, I think the game that we're in a relationship game, but we're also in the information and insights game. So it goes back to like resumes, right? Like if you know something that's not on the resume, references, maybe a little bit about someone else might not know, like references and preferences. If you know the references and preferences and you got the resume, you got one up on the person that you're recruiting against and you're more likely to be able to place them. So it's the same with any kind of sales. If you know what that person's about, you have some idea of their preferences, you could tailor your messages to make them feel like you're giving them some value and give them value.
Yeah. Well, it's like, we talked about it before, right? It's like the context. Context is everything. And if you know the context and you have a real reason that you're reaching out because you've done that research, but now you can do that research at scale a lot quicker. Yeah, I think that's massive. What do you think? Because you mentioned, the approach might not be the best today, right? I mean, you kind of mentioned that, and it could still be. But in your mind, what are the things that have stayed the same from back in the career builder days, where you're like, yeah, it just hasn't changed? Like, when it comes to building relationships?
Yeah, I think going back to what I said earlier about delivering value in each touch point. So I remember that there was a person, one of the presidents at one of the companies, and they used to receive messages from people in the organization. And that person was giving the president updates constantly on the market, finding articles. And so that president was then able to go in the meeting and say they knew this and they knew that, right? So they were kind of like research, and that wasn't their job, but they then kind of was able to move up. So they were selling internally a little bit. And I've always looked at that to say, okay, look, and that's why I believe in the newsletter, I believe in the community, believe in this, what we're doing. If we can give people some value at scale and they could take something away from it and that's useful for them, then that doesn't change, right? But so I think before you do that, it's like the context, which is the research. So understanding the environment. So I'd say research, then once you've got some research, thinking about your value process, maybe it's one touch point, maybe it's 8, like you said, and then connecting. And that's where it comes into like building those relationships. Does the person, you can connect if someone likes you, if they say it's like, hey, I buy from this person, you can connect. If someone trusts you, connect if someone has expertise, right? And so like, what are those areas that you're going to double down on? Maybe it's all of them, right? Certainly need trust in all cases.
Yeah.
And then it's expertise. And if someone likes you, and then it's like, are you reliable? I think reliability is a key as well. There's a lot of flakiness going on with the AI agents and the bots. It's like what's real and what's fake. So being solid is also important as well throughout the sales process.
How do you become more likable? And is that something you can like train? And like when you think about likability, like how do you get better at being more likable?
When I think
or even today, like authenticity, I think is another one. Like I kind of bucket into that, like likable, genuine, authentic. Like how do you get better at that? Sorry to cut you off too.
No, absolutely. I think that likability starts with respect. And I never really wanted to be liked. I just wanted to be respected. And in order to be respected, you have to be reliable. You have to put work in. And I think that if you respect someone, there's a grounds for liking someone. And so I would lead with that. You can be more likable if people respect something about what you do and how you operate and how you carry yourself. And if you lean into like, I want to be liked because I want to feel liked, that's again, not you giving value. That's what you want to feel. But people may just like you because they just respect the work that you're doing, respect the way that you operate. Okay, like that word like as well has been used a lot. And I was sitting in with one of my colleagues the other day in California, Berkeley, and I was like, what's the most overused word? It's like this, like that. So like, we're going to go here, like that. I was like, why do people keep saying like? And I was thinking maybe it's because of social media, because of the like button. And it's just something that just, and I actually started listening to a podcast about the person who invented the like button. And liking became like a standard thing, but it used to be about respect.
Mm.
Do you respect this? I don't care about being liked. I want my family to like me. But in business, you want to be respected. And that's a big difference. And I think if you're respected, that leads to relationships, then you build trust, then you build bonds, and you can evolve.
Maybe they need to change it from you buy from people you know, like, and trust to you buy from people you know, respect, and trust.
Who's they? We're here, right? So there's no days. We make it happen.
We'll make it happen.
We're doing it now, right? Like the new, it's not a respect. It's not a like, it's a respect. So maybe it's a fist bump. Respect that. There should be a fist bump icon on LinkedIn. If you see a fist bump icon on LinkedIn, so we've got this kind of share, care, support.
We should have respect, no respect.
Yeah. Respect that. I don't respect that.
I would be
SPECT. Yeah, like we got to go down that route.
I would be a big fan of that.
But we might not even listen. Maybe we don't air this podcast and we just like literally hold on to this and just do the respect. We have the respect platform.
That should be our business platform, and you earn respect.
Yeah, earn respect.
Every post you do, instead of getting likes, you get respect.
Yeah.
But it's the truth though, because it's funny. I would feel like I'm a pretty likable person, but I'm building. I feel like that's something I'm working on constantly, is just building respect. And I think the way that you described it is perfect. It's being reliable, following up, following through, and it's a challenge. I think that follow up, that follow through, it's so huge, and it's a core tenet of building relationships. So you can't build relationships without following up. But in a day where there's so much information, there's so many prospects, there's so many connections, follow up just doesn't always happen. But the people who I've seen in recruitment that are just the people who are the big billers, the people who are the ones who are the big influencers, they know how to follow up. And there's reliability in following up. So when they say they really want to talk to you, they'll follow up for months, for years.
Yeah.
And in doing that follow up, you show how reliable you're going to be and what you're going to be like in business.
So there's two things I'll say to that. I learned in a book that I used to love reading. It's called Steve Schiffman, Cold Calling Techniques That Really Work. That was one of the first books I've read years and years ago. And it wasn't about following up, it was about following through.
Ooh.
And that, I never forgot that. Now, more recently, I've actually been terrible at that. And I actually think that is because of social media.
Yeah.
And I actually got a note from a friend of mine that had said this person was interested, but your follow through. That was what prompted me to build the agent as well, because I get a lot of inbounds.
Yeah.
And I always used to follow through with every single person. And it got me thinking about follow through and what that means when someone sees that message and the time that they see it. And I used to be prided on like, that was it. Yeah. Like we know him for follow through. Your follow through is just phenomenal. That was like what I was known for. But I let that drop. It was still there when I was like a Deco as a president there, that it was still there. But then I started building into product. I had a bit more reliability on the product doing some of that. But I think that actual follow through is key, but it's like, how do you manage it at scale? Because before I used to have to like run around to get people to talk to me, like calling 100, but then if you've got like 120 inbounds, it's trying to get back to all of that. And it's just a different problem. I'd much rather have this problem. I actually feel grateful to have this problem where I can't follow, but I don't want to be unreliable.
Yeah.
So that's also, so a lot of these sales problems that we're solving at EQ are really problems that I had myself, or things that I think about a lot as we start to get into a world where there's also a lot of noise out there, like so much noise. You've got a lot of these messages and people are not necessarily delivering value at each time. So how do you find the value at the right time?
I also think there's when I think about the values, is one thing you taught me as well. And we haven't talked about it on this episode. One thing that you told me was at conferences, introduce people. Like if you see two people standing in the same vicinity, or they're in the same circle, how you kind of circle up at conferences and you can just clearly tell they both know you, but they don't know each other, like linking them up and like doing the introduction. And where my mind went was, and this is something that I try and do on a lot of calls, is as they're describing what they're doing, what they're working on, right? Because everyone's working towards something. So
Sure.
always, every business meeting's like kind of slightly selfish, where it's like, I'm working on something, I want something, you're working on something, you want something. There's always a trade-off.
Mhm.
And if you can be that person who understands what they're working on, what they're trying to solve, sometimes you're not even the person that can solve the problem, but if you can introduce them to somebody that can solve a problem, or introduce them to somebody that can help them get to where they're going, or somebody that can buy from them, it's massively valuable. And I think that you're somebody who does that really well. And and that's something which
And you shouldn't do that for everyone. That's also
Right.
another thing, right? So like, I think it's really important to connect people, but if you don't, it's sort of like the old kind of mafia gangster kind of vibes. If you don't vouch for that person, don't connect them with someone else in your network.
Yeah.
Because then that holds a different heft. If I introduce you to someone, you're going to know they're high quality.
Yeah.
Because the other thing that people do is they introduce you, and when you get busy, like, oh, man, I can't actually speak to these people. Or what I find challenging is people will introduce you, but they're introducing you because they want to sell whatever they're selling. Maybe they're an advisor for startups and they've seen that you've got a background in investment as I do, and then they want to introduce me to this startup. That's not necessarily helpful for me.
Yeah.
But if you thought about the fact that, is it helpful for me and is it helpful for that person, then there's a collaboration point. Those are the best introductions. So the introductions that you make, and I've seen people make them through emails, it's like, this is your background, this is what you do, this is what they do, this is why I think there's a good opportunity there. And then your introductions are high quality.
Well, and that's the key to it, right? It's like understanding their problems and then being able to link up. Okay, I know someone else who solves these problems that can actually provide value, and it's that synergy. Because I know I've made connections before that have ended up in big business deals or a big business transaction, and it's, maybe I'm not even profiting from that, but in the long run, you profit with it because you're the person that connected them. And then next time you need something, next time you go to connect, it's like you have some kind of like value that you can get. And it's almost like it works out in the long run. At least what.
Again, and we'll probably have to wrap it up, but it's nuanced. I'll give you another scenario. So that is true, but think about it this way, yeah? If I connect you with someone and you do a big deal, and then I connect that person with someone else and they do a big deal, and then my network.
Yeah.
Is my network, from a revenue perspective, got more revenue or less revenue? So if I connect you with someone,
yeah, it's got the same revenue.
Has it got the same revenue, or has it got more revenue or less revenue? So if there's let's say there's 50K on each side,
yeah,
has a network got the same revenue or more revenue? Because if somebody done a deal outside the network, what happens?
Oh, if someone's done a deal outside the network, yeah, then you've increased the value of that network.
Are you with me?
Yeah. So
if we have $50,000, right?
Yeah.
And you do a deal with someone else, and it's for, let's say, another $50,000, right? That's what the total cost of it. That network increases by 100K. Because it stayed within the network. If you do that over and over again, you've increased the value of your network. And if they say your network is your net worth, and you do that multiple times, now within your network, I'm in a network at the moment, there's $2 trillion in that network. Because there's stuff that happens inside of that network. And so if you think of it like that, not what can you get next, but how can you strengthen your network? It's the same back of delivering value.
Yeah.
The value will come back around. And that's a hard concept to kind of grasp because people are short term. But if you're in a certain space, you want to help that space and that network do well.
Yeah.
And then you will all do well ultimately together. But I think we're getting close to the end of the show now, Joel.
No, I love it. Well, I love hearing your thoughts on sales, the way that you think about sales. Where would you advise people get a hold of you? I know we got community, we got LinkedIn. What's the best place for people to find you?
Yeah, so for me, you could find me at our community. So eq.app, if you just quick domain, so eq.app, and also on LinkedIn as well. And I'd love to connect to anyone that wants to talk about business development, sales, and really helping you leverage AI in that space. I think the one thing I'll leave people with is the technology is there to enable you and empower you, but think about how you can bring that into the ideal workflow. What could you do with the technology today that was not possible last year and the year before, and then start leaning into those areas, and you'll find a ton of opportunities.
I love it. And where are you going to be? Are you going to be in person anywhere coming up soon as well?
Yeah, we'll put some stuff. We'll put some stuff in the community and of where we're going to be, and then go from there. How about you, Joel?
I will be at RecFest in October, and then ERE I think in November, and then I know we're going to do a live show coming up too, and that's going to be online. So it's not really in person, but excited for that as well, just to be able to kind of grow the network as well.
Yeah. All right. Sounds good. Well, always a pleasure connecting with you and looking forward to the next episode.
Yeah. Thanks for tuning in, guys. We'll talk next week.
If you got value from today's episode, share it with someone in your network, your team, your boss, or that recruiter still stuck in 2015. Be sure to follow the show so you never miss what's next in hiring and AI. Until next time.